simplifying radicals with a negative inside, and adding and subtracting complex numbers. So to review, you have to know that a plus bi is a complex number. A and b are real numbers, and the I is imaginary. The other thing you have to remember is the pattern of I to the first is I to the second is equal to -1, I to the third is equal to -I, and then you have I to the fourth, which is equal to +1. Here are two examples now where we have to simplify. Now if we're going to simplify the square root of 18, we have to break it down into the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. And we know the square root of 9 is 3, and we're left with the square root of 2. How do you simplify square root -18? Break it down to square root -1, square root 18. So you want to make sure you get the square root of -1 first, and we know that the square root of -1 is I. Bring down the 18, and now let's simplify square root 18. And we know square root 18 is square root 9, square root 2, square root of 9 is 3, and we're left with 2. But you can't forget about the I. You have to bring the I down, and you get 3I square root 2. Let's try another one. I want to simplify square root of -40. Automatically, I know we are going to have an I because of the negative inside the radical. So I'm going to rewrite it as I square root 40. So again, if you have square root negative number, it automatically becomes I square root whatever that number is. Now let's break down 40. 40 is 10 and 4, square root 10, square root 4, square root of 4 is 2, square root 5, square root 2, and we have to remember the I. So square root of 5 is not a perfect square, square root of 2 is not a perfect square, so we have to leave it as square root 10. The 2 gets multiplied by the I, and you get 2I. One more example. Square root of -45. Automatically, the negative becomes I square root 45. Break down square root 45, you get the square root of 9, the square root of 5. The square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 5 is not perfect, so you leave it inside, and you can't forget about the I. So your final is 3I square root 5. The I will always come after the actual number. So it will always be number and then I, not I then the number. Next we will add and subtract complex numbers. So what is the sum or difference? So let's do A. We have 7 minus 2I plus -3 plus I. Just combine like terms. You have 7 and -3. 7 minus 3 is 4. -2I plus I becomes -I. And that is your answer for A. Next, let's try example B. So we have 1 plus 5i minus 3 minus 2i. With the subtraction, you have to be careful because you have to distribute the negative. Don't forget to distribute. Why? Because there's a negative 1 right there. So let's rewrite it as 1 plus 5i. Negative times a positive 3 is a negative 3. A negative times a negative becomes a positive 2i. Now we can combine like terms. Negative 3, and 1 becomes negative 2. 5 plus 2 is 7i. If you have any questions about adding or subtracting, you can try the questions C and D above, or see me after class.